Okay, good afternoon, or actually almost there. Um, this is the Mudong Hing Hangwon class. We're just going to run through some basic fundamentals, and then we're going to go through the form that we've been working on, that breathing form. And there's characteristics of Yethimon that are so unique compared to many of the other traditional systems. And one of the things that's so unique and why it's so hard to follow, because some of the forms, they're not that they're so complicated or complex, but the transitions happen so quickly that it's very hard to follow in a sense that you can't pick up on it. The visuals happen too quickly for the average person without a foundation to pick up on what the next movement is, because the body doesn't know to move like that. So that's something that's very unique. With that said, let's just get into some of these fundamentals, the warm-ups that we do. Okay. Whole premise is just relax and let the joints go. It seems like you're not doing a whole lot, but the thing is, it takes time for your body to kind of adjust and learn to create a motion that's very efficient, I would say. Efficiency of movement. Okay, then the hands are here. Okay, deep breathing, inhale. And sana. Okay, step forward. Okay, shake it out. Okay, hands here. Okay, switch. And sana. Okay, shake it out. So the exercise that we do like this, that we typically do in class, these are actually part of Yethimon, these exercises. So get familiar with these movements as well, because I don't do a whole set of warm-ups. A lot of the ones that we're doing in the other classes are actually part of this training too. Okay, we'll just do a few, just give you a sampling of what is going on here. Okay, so that's those and these. So these are actually part of that as well. Okay, so sometimes that actually exercise is done this way. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing, inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So then you have the drilling movement, which is, pretty standard in most martial arts. It's sometimes called changing of the palms, or it's just a drilling exercise that creates like palm strikes, face, or any of the movements that appears to have the palm going like that. Okay, so this is really pretty standard as far as positioning. And you have the low hoops, or palm strikes, face. This is actually something that you can work with to improve your movements and coordination. And then you can also take it to the side. And actually, all that does is end up doing, in a more condensed version, cloud hands with the twisting. So one of the things that's pretty apparent in a lot of the movements in Yehimon is the twisting, the spiraling. It's that concept is actually in everything as well. Turning the form up and down is really a rotation. It's a spiraling, because the spiraling is kind of an energy, and it's also a spiraling is creating a force that has rotational torque. It's building torque. So this is something that happens whether it's in the weapons when you do this, or when you throw a punch and you're twisting that, or you're pulling down. That's really a mechanics, a physical mechanics that kind of supports and aids some of the movements that you have. So that adds a dimension of movement, but also adds a dimension of focus and power. So that's really sort of in the rifling of a gun or a rifle, has that spiraling kind of carved out inside the barrels, so that it actually chambers, allows the bullet to kind of develop this spiraling action. So that's really, called corkscrew, or spiraling, or screwing strength. It's kind of the same idea as using a thread. It's really threading into the movements. So that happens in your limbs, it happens in your legs as part of twisting and rotating. When your body twists, it's really creating that spiraling. So when you're doing movements, they have to kind of blend together. Conflict in movements sometimes would be, not, coordinated, connected in a fashion where it supports each other. So that's something that's, over time will be understood by the body. Okay. So this is one of the stances that we start off with. I use this one a lot. When we're here and we go to this stance, we're in that corner. If I were to turn and I face this way, I would face that corner. If I pull my foot up like this, I would measure it and I would be facing that corner. So how your feet face really will dictate direction. When I'm here and I take that step forward, we have this hand movement really is a vertical hand like this. So we just practice that hand movement, we're like this. Okay, if we practice it like this, that's a thrusting which is pretty standard for a lot of styles. And you also can do this, right? So this is actually, you see it in Sun style Tai Chi. So Sun style is a system of Tai Chi that evolved from the Wu Hao style or the Kwok style Tai Chi. So these movements are kind of universal in a sense, but the application interpretation of the movement becomes somewhat stylistic. Okay, then we have the lower hoop. Okay, so that's that position. We have a press. So these are positions. In fact, everything that we do is established in a posture or position. So posture and position kind of interchangeable. The position is the hand movement. The posture is a combination of the body form and the hand position. So that kind of establishes, the look of that specific motion or action. So what we're trying to develop, the muscle memory for this movement that's going in a direction. So everything is directional. Directional is creating forces in direction like a vector. Your idea is to go in a direction with a certain amount of magnitude and a certain amount of, directness to a target position. So, from point A to point B essentially is what's happening. So when we're here, we have those. Well, let's go to shoulder width stance. Okay. We also have these chopping movements, right? So building the integration of your hand movements. Okay. So we're here and we're here. We're here and we're here. Okay. Then we have this movement. So just think of everything as a motion in direction, and you try to define that direction of movement and then memorize the different actions, so then the body eventually will pick up on that. Okay? Okay, so your hands are here, and one's like that. Okay, and we have this. So the hands are either like this or like this, right? So you can be, so those are going to the corners. So Jade Lady Work Shuttle would be that. Okay. More vertical elbow or triangular, sort of a zigzag movement would be this, like this. So these go to the corner, and these cross hand movements essentially go to the corner or to the front, right? So when we're here, it's like that, right? So when we have a movement, we always have a stance and a leg movement, all right? So if we're like this, we would be chopping in a position like this. So because Yeti-Mon works off of simple movements like that, and then you practice it and you generate the same motion repeatedly. So if we were to take a step like this, we could practice this movement. So you step. See, so you step this right side, left side, right side, left side. You could step up, right side, left side, right? So here, you would step up 1, 2. So you're just repeating the same motion over and over. And I mentioned many times that we're creatures of habit. So you practice the movement over time, then you start to identify with the movement. And then when they're put together in a sequence, you create a form. That's essentially what's happening. Whether it's right foot forward or left foot forward. it gives you a sense of motion in space, right? If I'm here and I take a step forward, doing a 1, 2, right? I'm just doing 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you see there's those 3 different movements kind of tied together with the step, the step, the step. And then if I were to step through, it would come up to this side, and then you would step or move up again. Generally, we step up on the left side, we're going to make a turn, or we're going to do something different, but we don't have a whole lot of stepping in this direction because still as a tradition, it's kind of right side dominant. Okay, now we go to the corners. So a suspended horse is this. Now when we're here. We move it to here, we have this side. We move it to here, we have this side. So that's really the corners. So if I do a Jade Lady Work shuttle, you notice they're in the corners. If I do this, it's to the side, and it's zigzagging or crooked. So this would be your movements going to the side, going to the side, going to the side, going to the side, going to the side. So you have this empty stance with this hand movement. So these hand movements really tie together as a body posture. Then you have your hand position. So that's what I was mentioning earlier, that you look at the hand positions, then you look at the posture that you're creating. Okay, then we have the cross hand position that's like this. So that goes to the sides because the front foot is this way, and then this is like this. So your hands just switch and switch and switch and switch and switch. So that's those hand movements. Okay. So when we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's really the 5 movements. Those are the 5 elements, and those 5 elements represent, metal, wood, fire, earth, and water. So they represent different elements because the Murang Yethi Nhang one, Mhang is actually the 5 elements. Yet he is 1 chi. So it's 1 chi, 5 elements. So that's really the name of the system. Yethi Mhang. Mhang is really the elements of the movement. So you have gold, you have water, you have wood, you have metal, and you have earth. So we'll go into identifying those, some other time. But just learning the movements first, and then get familiar with it. Then it's easy to remember all this information. So here, when we start off here, we go like this. This is the beginning of that form, right? So when we're here, it's 1, 2. Just a recap of the hand movements. So you're doing that. 1, 2, 1, 2. You take a step. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Let the hands go. Turn. And find your side position like this. And then twist. And then take your step. So let me try that again. So I know I blocked the camera there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay. There's so many subtle and transitional positions that are small that is very hard to pick up on the positions. So this is a position, and we actually have a way of practicing that position like this. So when you have this position, it's really the alignment of the hands and how that's relative to a position when you intercept someone's arm or an appendage. And usually the hands, regardless of what system it is, it's usually attaching to the wrist and the elbow. Wrist and elbow. So when the hands go in a position, that's something that is always a target position. So when you learn a position or a movement, that relative position is training you to attach efficiently without actually having to figure out where it's going. So if you're going to attach, when it's like this, the hands have to automatically go to those positions because you don't have time to search for where it's going to go. So, if you ask about, if you're wondering if it's like joint locking or China, any of those things, if you can't attach or deflect, how can you attach yourself to a joint if you can't figure out where it's going to be because you have to look at it? You're developing a sensory system that's very responsive and proprioceptive based on muscle memory and position. So when I'm like this, or I'm like this, these actually are positions that's actually ingrained into your posture. That's why when I do movements, the accuracy of positions already set in my system. So when I do Tai Chi or Kung Fu, when we work with the referencing points in the body, they're already established. Now, how efficiently you can get to them, how quickly you can get to them, and how consistently you can get to these positions is really what skill is. Now, skill and the term Kung Fu actually work as they're synonymous. Skill and Kung Fu work together because Kung Fu is work time, over time, right? It's a function of. Skill is also a function of. So you can't avoid or you can't develop Kung Fu without skill, and you can't develop Kung Fu without time. So you have to actually put the effort in to develop the skill. So when I'm here, when I go like this, the movements really become. So I did that as kind of quick, but when you're doing it as a breathing exercise, it's one step at a time. Inhale, exhale. So breath and movement is trained and coordinated. It sounds so unique that Qigong, breathing exercises is tied to breath and movement. Actually, breath and movement is a natural phenomena. You breathe, you exhale, you move, you create circulation. That's, the whole premise of maintaining vitality and existence. Without those functions, you cannot exist. It's just a natural state. So when we focus on the breath and the movement and the coordination, you're not building just the external physical action. You're also building the internal mechanism to coordinate the breath and the movement. So that's why Yehimon is a breath movement exercise. It's a Qigong. They say Qigong Ji Yit. It's like it is the heart of the system as far as whether it's the style or heart of your system, your apparatus. Right? So your body form and position really tie together as one unit. So henceforth, the idea of Yet He is oneness, harmony. He Kun is a breath and the form. So it's a routine. And through that simple experience of doing that, your body starts to build recognition. So that's kind of what it is. Last week I did a little bit of a form. It's called 3 continuous strikes. What you see are movements from the form, right? So when we move, you're seeing the movements cycling. So now, do you see some of the positions that we have in the form? So when we're here, when we're here, when we're here, you can see that the sudden movement is very hard to pick up on. That's so spontaneous that when you're learning other styles, you can't, how quick is that happening? That quickness comes from your body's response because it knows it. You can't do that when you're kind of thinking about it and then trying to do the next move, thinking about trying to do the next move. That's what reflex action is. You override that, so it happens so quick and so spontaneous that this training builds that type of response. Very good for self-defense or techniques, but not so good, in the beginning to learn. So it looks complicated, but yet it's simple. It looks simple, but yet it's hidden inside the action is very, I would say, subtle and sort of mystical, people would think. How does the body move? How does the body move from one position to the next without, having the conflict from tension? So we do these, kind of build the idea of relaxed movement, blending, and tying it together. And eventually, all these postures, there's so many that your body will actually start to assimilate those in kind of an order, but yet, not specifically always in the given order that we do it in a form. So that's what reflexes are. So anyways, so I hope you enjoyed this. It's something that is unique. It's one of the systems that only we teach at the academy, as well as over on the other side of the world, in Hong Kong. So we're trying to get people to understand that there are traditional systems that's not very large because not a lot of people practice it. Okay, I think on that note, what time is it, Lucien? So we got a few minutes. So do we have any questions? Mm-hmm.
And then we also had Gary Borum who said he really enjoyed it, he really liked it, and thank you very much.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we had input, but not necessarily questions.
Yeah. So this, like any other system, and this, and even more important, is your body form. Because the body form and position and joint angle positions really become highlighted and magnified. As small as it is, it's magnified by its efficiency of motion. So what happens is when it's magnified, the efficiency shows up when it doesn't work, when you're out of position or you're forcing the movement. So our whole premise of doing this is not to force the movement, approach a naturalness of action, and use the correct strength. I mean, that's probably the goal in everything that you're doing with any type of martial art. But with this, it's very specific, and your breath, your movement is really important. And then the vertical position and your posture really is key. All right, on that note, I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, do a little bit of a chat or email, and then maybe I can address that the next session, which would be next Wednesday. All right, have a good week.